enticed it. Would you do me a favor and ask Rodney to bring me a mug and some tea? Where is he? Oh, there he is. All I can see is you. Thank you, Rodney. Should have drunk some water before I came. Now, a bottle of water would be wonderful. Why, you got one? Thank you. I like that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right, you ready? Okay, I don't have a regular, oh yeah, I do have a regular pen. Good. Questions, then signing. Prompt me if I forget. That's a bad beginning. Good morning. Thank you for joining me today as we take another step towards strengthening our communities. Let me begin by acknowledging the elected officials and local leaders who've also joined us today. Commissioner Donna Miller, Teresa Haley, President of the NAACP Illinois State Conference, Mitchell Davis, President-elect of the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police and Chief of Police of Hazel, Crest, Robert Moore, Chair of the Illinois NAACP Criminal Justice Committee, Karl Brinson, President of the Chicago Westside NAACP, Rose Joshua, President of the Chicago Southside NAACP, Steve Stetler, former President of IACP and Indian Head Park Chief of Police, Austin Randolph, First Vice President of the Springfield branch of the NAACP. And Darlene Washington is our sign language interpreter. I want to give a special acknowledgement to Commissioner Scott Britton, who is here today as well. Commissioner Britton, his Chief of Staff, Julie Caviar, and the rest of his team have spearheaded this effort, and we commend them for their work on behalf of everyone who enjoys our preserves. I also want to give special thanks to General Superintendent Arnold Randall, Chief Sylvester Bush, and the rest of the Preserves Police Department. Superintendent Randall and his staff have made racial equity a priority in the Forest Preserves of Cook County, both in internal operations and how the preserves, policies, programs, and staff interact with the public. We thank them for their service. Criminal justice reform has been the cornerstone of my administration. Today's signing of the 10 shared principles represents another step forward in the fight for a more just world and is an important statement of the Forest Preserve's values: respect, justice, transparency, accountability, and honest recognition of past and present obstacles. I commend our officers who've committed to incorporating these fundamental beliefs into their work. The forest preserves belong to everyone in our diverse county, and everyone should feel welcome in the preserves. The Forest Preserves Police are dedicated to the nearly 70,000 acres of the Forest Preserves of Cook County. They're critical to ensuring the preserves are a place where visitors are safe and where nature can thrive. They perform a dual role, both the conventional duties of a police officer and the tasks and duties performed by conservation officers. At times, Forest Preserve police officers address illegal, dangerous, or ill-advised behavior and keep our residents safe. More often, they are resources for visitors and a visible reminder that the forest preserves are a safe space. The 10 shared principles provide everyday guidance for more equitable and effective policing in the preserves. They're an important addition to our ongoing work to address equity and inclusion. Thank you all for being here today as we recommit to protecting and serving our residents. All of Cook County thanks you for your good work. Now I'd like to invite Superintendent Randall to the podium.
Thank you, President Preckwinkle. Thanks to Commissioner Britton, who has been the champion for adopting these 10 shared principles at the Forest Preserves, and Commissioner Miller, as well as representatives from the organizations who created these principles, the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police and the NAACP. Tomorrow evening, we will be participating in a Zoom event with Commissioner Britton, the NAACP, and the ILACP, and members of the public to discuss the shared principles and the Forest Preserve Police. This is important work and ongoing work, and we appreciate your partnership in helping us to continue to move forward. Forest Preserves of Cook County law enforcement is not a typical municipal police department. Our officers are sworn with all that implies for maintaining public safety. They also receive specialized training in conservation and ecology from the Illinois Department of Natural Resources to protect plants and animals in our care. They check fishing licenses, stop poachers, and work to keep people from dumping trash in our preserves. Forest Preserve police officers are ambassadors to the public in the preserves, our version of community policing, including hundreds of bike patrols on bike and foot patrols on our trails and in the preserves every year. We have no officer-involved shootings and no complaints of excessive use of force for our police, and in annual surveys of our patrons, police receive high marks from very good to excellent. Nevertheless, in the summer of 2018, one of our officers failed to protect a young woman during a racist incident. This was a wake-up call for us, and as a public agency, we recognize we must do better. Today, all members of our police department have received implicit bias training, which will continue for all Forest Preserve employees, and we are in the process of rolling out body-worn cameras for our police on patrol. We have started to create a model police department action plan to maintain and strengthen police community relations, create an inclusive and equitable work culture, and support a diverse police force. I want to thank our Chief of Police, Sylvester Bush, for his work on this action plan, and note that he's been involved with the 10 shared principles with the National Association of Black Law Enforcement Executives. These efforts are part of a district-wide focus on equity. Our Racial Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee is helping create new policies around issues such as community engagement and hiring and training. And last year, our Board of Commissioners adopted a position paper created by our Conservation and Policy Council on moving towards racial equity in the forest preserves of Cook County. Like that paper, the 10 shared principles will be a blueprint for our equity initiatives and make a public promise to continue this work. These principles reflect standards we expect, saying clearly and simply, we value the life of every person. We reject discrimination. All persons should be treated with dignity and respect. The 10 principles endorse procedural justice, transparency, accountability, diversity in the profession, and an honest recognition of past and present obstacles. These are fundamental values we hold not only for law enforcement, but in every department of the Forest Preserves. I'm glad to have such a strong guiding light for our work, and I pledge that we will steer toward this light in all of our endeavors. Thank you, and now I'd like to introduce Commissioner Scott Britton.
Good morning. I am Commissioner Scott Britton of the 14th District of Cook County. This process started for me, like it did for many people last summer, with the horrific incident and the crime that was committed on George Floyd. When I saw that, like many of you, I thought there was much that needs to be done, but where can we take practical steps, practical action to improve the relationship between our police and particularly our communities of color. There had to be a better way forward. That is why I sponsored this particular resolution in the Cook County Board to find a new way not only to improve the policing and the interaction between the community and our officers, but protect our officers as well. The affirmations that the Forest Preserve has made in signing the 10 shared principles is a continued step in building in the process between law enforcement and the communities they serve. When I suggested that the Forest Preserve sign the 10 shared principles last year, I could only have imagined how it could have expanded into the passionate, pragmatic, and productive partnership it is today. To effect real change, we must have an open, honest, and sometimes challenging conversation about lived experiences so we can find opportunities for growth and evolution. We will be having what will surely be the first of many such conversations tomorrow evening to hear experiences from diverse voices, learn from residents about how the Forest Preserves can continue to build on the 10 shared principles, and collaborate together to ensure the preserves feel welcoming for all. The principles declare accurately that fairness, transparency, impartiality, mutual responsibility, and community partnerships are the key to diminishing and eliminating racial tension. The principles reject discrimination of any kind and promise to build support for diverse police departments. The Forest Preserves indeed continue the never-ending work of ensuring diverse voices get heard and that, when needed, tangible changes are made to reform policing practices and policies. The Preserves have never turned down an opportunity to engage with communities across the county and have never turned their back on residents who raise concerns. This is what real partnership looks like. I wish to thank all of our partners, especially President Preckwinkle for her support, the Illinois NAACP, the Illinois Associations of Chiefs of Police for their partnership over the past year, General Superintendent Randall, and all the Forest Preserve personnel for their ongoing commitment to equity, and to the Chicago Westside and Chicago Southside branches of the NAACP for collaborating on what we typically would describe as where the rubber meets the road. I guess in this case it would be where the tractor meets the trail. This is the first step. It is a process, but it is one that we are excited to pursue together. And it is now my pleasure to introduce my friend and colleague and a co-sponsor of this resolution, Commissioner Donna Miller.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam President and Commissioner Britton, for inviting me here today for this important moment for our county with the adoption of the 10 shared principles of the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police and the Illinois NAACP by our Forest Preserve. I also want to acknowledge Chief Mitchell Davis, who's here representing, who will be speaking in just a moment. I was proud and an honored co-sponsor to co-sponsor the resolution in support of the 10 shared principles of the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police and the NAACP that Commissioner Britton brought forth last year, and was approved by the Forest Preserve Board of Commissioners, as well as the companion resolution on the county side by the Cook County Board. The 10 shared principles asserts the importance of treating all persons with dignity and respect, and rejects discrimination towards any person on the basis of race, ethnicity, religion, color, nationality, immigrant status, sexual orientation, gender, disability, or familial status, and emphasizes building strong relationships between the law enforcement and communities of color through transparency, accountability, and honest recognition of past and present obstacles. The principles also endorse the 6 pillars in the May 2015 report from President Obama's task force on 21st century policing. Nearly 230 entities throughout Illinois have adopted the 10 shared principles since its inception in 2018, and more than 60 co-signing police departments in Cook County. I'm happy to see our Forest Preserves district leading by example by adopting these principles, Many, but not all, police departments in the 6th District, which I represent, have already adopted them. And I would encourage all 6th District law enforcement agencies to sign on to this important document and adopt the principles outlined in it. During this past summer, I organized a press conference to bring together some of our Southland leaders to talk about what's going on in our communities in the South suburbs as it related to the incidents surrounding the tragic and unjust deaths of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd, and the resulting protests sweeping the nation. What was unique that we all were African-American legislators from all levels of government, and we were all women and all mothers, including Congresswoman Kelly, State Rep Debbie Myers-Martin, and President Sheila Chalmers-Curran. So we can all understand what it's like to worry about our children on a daily basis. And we were all united in support of peaceful protests against police brutality in particular and against systemic racism in general. Adopting the 10 shared principles won't end police brutality and racism, but it is a step in the right direction as we continue to push for lasting change for the betterment of our communities here in Cook County and in our state and in our nation. So next, I would like to welcome Teresa Haley, President of the NAACP Illinois State Conference.
Good morning. It is truly an honor and a blessing to be here. And to President Preckwinkle, we are so grateful, the NAACP. About 6-7 years ago, the NAACP of the Springfield branch, we're just an hour and a half from Ferguson, Illinois, or Ferguson, Missouri. And what happened in Ferguson was so close to Springfield. Springfield is the home of the 1908 race riots that led to the start of the NAACP as we know it today. And so we simply said, enough is enough, not in our backyard. And we started doing talks with the Illinois chiefs of police. Those talks have been ongoing. We started out a series called Let's Talk, and then we did the World Cafes. We wanted to bring the community and law enforcement together to talk about our differences, to break down those barriers, to see what we could continue to do to save lives and to move forward. I am so pleased and honored to be here today to know that the commissioners, that Cook County is so excited to sign on to these principles and to make a difference. It's about saving lives. Again, enough is enough, and we are honored to be here. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Mitchell Davis, the police chief for the village of Hazel, Crest. But I'm here today in my capacity as first vice president of the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police. Also with me is immediate past president Steve Stelter of the Indian Head Park Police Department. I would like to congratulate President Preckwinkle, Superintendent Randall, and Commissioner Britton on the adoption of the NAACP and Illinois Chiefs 10 Shared Principles. Cook County Forest Preserve Police Chief Sylvester Bush was an active participant in the development of these principles, and I'm sure that he's extremely proud today. I want to give special recognition to my commissioner, Commissioner Donna Miller. Commissioner Miller has supported and promoted the adaptation of these principles since she has been in office. And with that in mind, it is no surprise that several communities and entities in her district have already taken this important step in adopting these principles over the past few years. On April 30th, I will be sworn in as the president of the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police. I will be the first black person in the 80-year history of the organization to hold this position. So our partnership with the NAACP has a special place in my heart. Previous presidents of our organization, which includes Chief Stelter, have lit and carried the torch, and it is my honor to run the next leg of this important relay without letting the fire burn out. The 10 shared principles are just that. They are shared commitment. They are shared commitment between the adopting entity and communities of color for mutual respect and equitable efforts of inclusion. Using these principles as guiding values in the continued evaluation and development of policy, procedure, and culture ensures that collaborative, targeted, organizational consistency can be maintained even if the participants change. It is with this in mind that I challenge the Cook County Forest Preserve to not simply hang these principles on the wall, but to actually incorporate them into every aspect of your daily workings. Share them with the members of your organization and make it clear that this is not just a ceremonial gesture, but a focus on these important beliefs. I am sure that what you will hear from many of your organizational members will be just as I heard from mine. We're already doing most of these things. Let those words serve as reassurance that you are on the right track. Again, I would like to commend you for the adaptation of these important and historic documents and principles, and I congratulate you. Thank you once again. And I would now like to introduce a man who's been a mentor to me. He's a historical figure in the law enforcement arena across the country, Mr. Robert Moore.
Good morning. My name is Robert Moore. Good morning. My name is Robert Moore. I'm the chairperson for the Criminal Justice Committee for the NAACP statewide. I'm a retired United States Marshal, former Chief of Police of Jackson, Mississippi, and I'm an author. But I've had the privilege of serving as the chair of the Criminal Justice Committee for the last 5 years. And it's been a wonderful experience because I've had the opportunity to travel statewide to help organize organizations and with the NAACP and police chiefs across the state. One of my favorite writers, John Maxwell, talked about it only takes one man or one person to create an idea. And the idea that a partnership could exist between a civil rights organization and a law enforcement agency was a idea that finally came to fruition. But it didn't just happen. It didn't just happen. After the Ferguson incident, the Illinois chiefs came to the NAACP leadership and said, what can we do to make sure that incidents like Ferguson does not come to Illinois? And that idea of a partnership was born. And following that idea, the idea of a 10 shared principles of behaviors that police officers and police chiefs and mayors across the state of Illinois could buy into in order to make things better in Illinois and make sure that Ferguson's and now Minnesota's does not come to Illinois. And we're committed to that. We're committed to make sure that the principles of which we have had developed, and I've been on the ground floor all the way up. We've had at least 27 meetings across the state with other communities. And we are so proud that your organization today is joining with us. So a couple of the principles I think that is worth mentioning, what we have learned as we went across the state, is that people want to be treated with dignity and respect. That's what we hear. We hear across the state. Citizens tell us they want their police departments to treat them with dignity and respect, and they don't want them to shoot them. And principle number one is saying that we value life. And we've seen too many of our black citizens being killed by our police across the nation. And that number one principle came about because of that. We want everybody to value life. And lastly, we want people to de-escalate on both sides. On both sides. We want the citizens to de-escalate as well as the police. And I think that what our ultimate goal is to have everybody to go home safe. At this time, I'd like to introduce our Westside president of the NAACP. Here he is.
Thank you, Chairman Moore. My name is Karl, Brinson, president of the Chicago Westside branch NAACP. It's an honor to be here this morning and just to be a part of the ceremony to see the county Forest Preserve sign these 10 principles. Madam President, thank you. Superintendent Randall, thank you for being a part of this. I think it's a great first step. I've been a resident of Chicago, a lifelong resident of Chicago all my life, and having these interactions with officers. I just like to say that this first step, these principles have to be more than just principles. We have to put them into practice. I cannot stress the importance of us practicing these principles. Take them from the theory, take them from the paper, and let's practice them. It's not going to be enough to make them a policy of have it just works when we're on our jobs as part of as we patrol the forest preserve, but we have to take these principles and make them part of our everyday lives. So once again, thank you, Madam President, Superintendent Randall, for being a part of this. We've come a long way. We have a long way to go. But once again, thank you. So let's put it in practice, make it a part of our daily lives, these 10 principles. Thank you.
Superintendent? And by the way, our guests may return and take seats. Why don't we, instead of having everybody stand, let's have them come and sit down.
So we have worked both with the 10 shared principles, but also just our racial equity paper, where we have really looked at our hiring practices related to diversity. We're certainly looking at how we engage the public and really applying those to our day-to-day activities as a police force. We think there's a lot of opportunity to do more, but a lot of what we've been talking about in the 10 shared principles we've adopted prior to adopting the 10 shared principles. So the Forest Preserve Police Department, they're all sworn officers, so they are traditional law enforcement in that way. But the reality of the Forest Preserves is we need officers to be ambassadors to the public. They're often the only face that the public sees of a Forest Preserve staff member. They enforce a lot of our conservation work, so that means we do have a problem sometimes with poachers or fly dumpers, or we check fishing license. We make sure that people are out there, that they're doing the right thing. So there's a lot of work related to conservation to protect these 70,000 acres of natural lands in and around Cook County to make sure that they're not abused and that they're properly taken care of. So our law enforcement really spends the majority of their time dealing with issues of conservation and connecting with the larger public.
In concert with the Forest Preserve Police Department, the Sheriff's Office also agreed to adopt the 10 shared principles. And more than that, and I thank Sheriff Dart for this, we sat down and had multiple meetings with the Sheriff's Department. The Sheriff's Department has an educational branch within the department where they train their sworn officers, both the Sheriff's Police and the correction officers. This is a resource that the county has, that it currently exists, that I wanted to try and roll out to additional police departments throughout the county. So the Sheriff Dart has agreed, and President Preckwinkle has supported our additional opportunities to give educational opportunities to our police departments in all of the suburbs. That includes those departments which may have some budget issues. They're willing to do those trainings for free. If you're in my district, I think they can pay, and they probably will. But there are a number of different provisions within their internal educational system for de-escalation and implicit bias training, all of which we're going to roll out through the Sheriff's Office.
I don't hear anybody.
Okay, let's get the signing then.
All right.
I'm going to sign the formal one, and then we'll go down the line.
Sure.
Coachers?
All right, may I turn this off? Okay, let me. All right, I've got 4 of these. You better tell me who I'm supposed to give them to. Hazel Davis, Teresa Haley, Karl Brinson, Rose Joshua. All right, we got 4 to sign. Okay? Wait. Yeah, we can sort of rotate. How's that? Who are we missing? You never made it?
No.
Well, that's interesting. They make my life difficult here.
All right, and then once we're all done, if we could all come up for a photo.
Hold on just a minute to sign that one. Oh, thanks. All right, now how do you want us? Give it.
We could hold one up in the middle.
All right, you want me to move this podium? It's unplugged, it's okay.